Welcome to CHL Rewind. I'm Hammett, 2717, joined with TSibs and Brad from the Owen Sound Attack. How you guys doing today?
Oh, not too bad. The sun's out. I just flew in from Vancouver. I went from 70-degree weather to back to Pittsburgh, where we got about 85-degree weather. So not much of a change there.
Plus, you went from Vancouver to Pittsburgh.
I went from a losing city to a winning city.
Sure, yeah. You can look at it that way, sure.
All right,
Congrats,
we didn't do a show week 3. We kind of all got tied up in our own things. But we're here for week 4, so we will be doing a little rewind on week 3. Also, week 4, the power rankings. Who's looking hot? Who's not doing so hot? And then we will be looking forward to week 5. 2 weeks before trade deadline. So definitely be on the lookout for that show, our trade deadline special. It's always a fun, interesting week, to say the least. Getting ready for playoffs, teams that are on the bubble of playoffs. Brad, how's things looking over in the O?
The O's looking pretty. We have some teams that made some moves in the past 2 or 3 weeks and have kind of separated themselves just a little bit. Mid-pack, it's all tight, and then you got the teams at the bottom that are trying to make a couple moves, last-minute moves, to hopefully get something going out there in the OHL. I know me personally, we've made a couple moves there, some that I did not 100% want to make, but had to make those choices based upon what's happening with the rest of our conference. Just trying to shoot for those last little playoff spots, so making a last little push there.
Yeah, looking at the power rankings here, can't not look at what the Ice Dogs have done. 5 of their players in the top 10 and hot forwards. On defense, you got 1, 2, 4 within the top 12. I mean, and that's out of all 60 teams. So the Ice Dogs, I think, are somebody to be reckoned with. Them versus Kingston, that will be an interesting game to watch with those two teams.
Yeah, I don't usually always look into winning streaks because you play 9 games a week, but the fact that they've won 13 straight games, that's pretty indicative of what's going on over there. You win 13, that's a week plus right there. So,
I mean, and it's no sneeze. I mean, they've got a goal differential of plus 59. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, they're scoring, and they're scoring in bunches. Mm-hmm. I mean, the next one even close to them is Kingston with 27. Like, I mean, they're putting up shots and they're scoring on them too. Yep. So, I mean, they are very scary right now.
Yeah, I'd have no problem playing for Niagara at 7 goals per game in this stretch. I can goaltend for that. I could do that.
Right. I mean, what, cigar monkey?
Yeah, well,
smoking monkey.
Yeah, on top of all
that's not a bad goaltender, anyways.
Exactly. On top of all that scoring, they've got him. I mean, and he's been, 4-0 this past week. Goals against 1.28. I mean, when you've got all that going, plus defensemen who have played great as well, Stokes and Kontos. I mean, what else do you need? How do you stop a team like that?
As you could tell,
you don't.
9-0 this week, you can't.
Exactly.
So, it'll be interesting. Let me see here. I don't know what their upcoming schedule looks like, but I mean, they're in Kingston's division. So,
Oh yeah.
I
You
mean,
want to talk? You want to talk about a rival, that potential
right.
rival? There you go.
And then you're not even including the 67s.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that division right there, that could get pretty ugly and pretty fast. And it's looking to shaping up in that way. Let's pull up the standings quick. So you got Kingston with 53 points. You got the 67s with 50. Where is you got Niagara with 54. Niagara is actually in the East Central, where the 67s and Kingston are in the East. So, I mean, there's nobody touching the Ice Dogs right now. You got the Steelheads at 39.
Yep.
I mean, you got they're 15-3-1 at home. 15-3-1 at home. That's insane. I mean, you got Kingston that's 13-4-1 at home. So, that's one of those, once you get into the playoffs, who's got home ice advantage?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a ways away. I mean, we're going into week 5, but I mean, that's scary. You got the 67s 14-3-0. So who gets that home ice? I mean, that is scary. Right now, you got the Ice Dogs in the first spot. You got Kingston in the second spot, and you got the 67s in the third spot.
You could easily say, unless you're 1, 2, and 3, you definitely want to be 4 and 5, because you don't want to be 6, 7, or 8 seed in that conference. Because that first round matchup, if you're 6, 7, or 8, wow.
That's Battalion, Generals, and Wolves.
Yep.
Right now, sitting in that. Right now, it's got the Wolves facing the Ice Dogs, Generals facing Kingston, and Battalion facing the 67s.
Like I said,
Pete's
your best
and
is
Steelheads
Battalion.
at 4 and 5.
Yep, that would probably be your best position right now, is 4 or 5, unless you're 1, 2, 3.
Well, let's talk about the OHL Western playoff race. You got the Sting, you got the Otters, the Greyhounds, the Knights, Spirit at 5, Brad's team, the Attack at 6, Spitfires, and Flint rounding it out. You got the Sting and Greyhounds both at 47 points. Got Otters at 44, Knights at 42, and Spirit at 41. So nobody's clearly running away with that division. I mean, they're all within 2-3 points of each other.
Those top 4 teams, literally, you throw them in a, like a top hat or whatever, and you pull them back out, and that was last week's standings. Those top 4 have they just shuffled around a little bit.
So you got Neg, who's the owner of the Otters. You have him trading Craven away.
Big move.
Big move. So you got the Greyhounds, and you got the Sting, and you got London. You got Guardian running on that team. It's hard to say. I mean, it's not anywhere close to what the OHL Eastern is.
Yep.
It's anybody's game from 6-1, where you have the Ice Dogs, Kingston, and the 67s pretty much running away with their division.
Correct.
It kind of reminds me of last season, where you had the Spirit, and then you had everybody else. Where you had the Eastern, where you had the 67s, you had Kingston, and you had Barry. So, it's might just be me, but I think it's possibly going to be the same thing this season, where you're going to have the East overtaking the OHL West.
I know. Last season, I was a TC for Saginaw, and the way they ran the program was ridiculously insane. It was run well enough. That helped to show what kind of team they were going to be, but they ran it pretty well. So you can tell there's a handful, maybe 3 or 4 teams out there that they've got it locked in, ready to go. It's just whether or not those pieces will change or not for call-ups, or if somebody gets shifted around, or maybe there's people placed on IR for vacation or something like that. Other than that, those teams are going to be locked in, ready to go for playoffs.
Right. And, and now you have combining forces there too, because you got Pau Cam and Zilla together. That's double the force, and they're showing it. They're showing their management experience. So, I mean, Kingston, you can't not sleep on. You see everybody in the forums sleep on Kingston. Nobody's sleeping on Kingston. We always knew Kingston was going to be a powerhouse. But, you had the surprises of other teams, like the Ice Dogs. Nobody thought the Ice Dogs were going to be this potent of a team. Now they are. You can't sleep on them anymore. You got the Greyhounds. The Greyhounds won 7-2. And third in team rankings. Mm-hmm. You can't sleep on them. You can't sleep on any team. Any team can win night in, night out. Plain and simple. It takes a greasy goal. It's almost like playoff hockey. Any team can win in this league.
Yep. And any given night.
Any given night.
I got a question.
Unless there's a forfeit.
I got a question for you. One question for you guys about CHL, and somebody who doesn't get to watch a lot of the games. There are always a lot of players who wind up in CHL who just aren't known. And it has nothing to do with talent level. It has to do with the fact that they're new. Maybe they've only played part of a season the season before. There's a lot of guys who don't have a lot of experience and aren't known enough to necessarily be bid on, but could be tremendous talent. And so I think, to me, it feels like there is a lot more talent down there than people in the other leagues realize, and maybe better talent than in the AHL and in the NHL in some areas. And that has to make it tough every night, not really necessarily knowing who you're going up against early on in the season. It probably takes a few weeks to at least get an idea of what to expect from every team. And, after 4 weeks, do you guys feel any more comfortable with the teams you're playing against? Do you feel like you know them any better at this point?
I really wouldn't say that you know them better unless you're playing them each week. The Ice, we've gone against the Kootenay Ice, I think, almost 4 times in 4 weeks. And it still hasn't gotten any easier. We're losing by 1 goal games, but they're still a tough team. That's Cred and Prodigy. Those guys have played LG, they've played VG, they know their guys. I really wouldn't say that you got a better scouting report, but that's about the only difference that you're going to get. The AHL, sometimes you can notice when it's friends helping friends,
mm-hmm.
because there is so much talent in the CHL.
Yeah.
that just gets overlooked.
Hmm.
You get the well-known people that get picked. They might not have as good as stats, but they're more well-known than, say, Joe Schmo on the Pete's. You know, you also get where you get the more stacked teams like Kingston. So it's harder to tell off of just stats of, okay, how much is Gostisbehere making this guy better than what he actually is.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, as much as we say it's just a video game, there is a lot of similarities to real hockey than there is where it's, oh, it's just a video game. Well, not really, because, okay, say, name somebody off the Pittsburgh Penguins. Nick Bonino. Okay, he plays with Sidney Crosby. Bonino has this many goals this season. Okay, now you bring him over to, say, Columbus. Not saying it would really happen, but bring him to Columbus. Is he going to get those same exact points in Columbus that he did playing with Sidney Crosby?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I get your point. Yeah.
So it's hard to say unless you literally watch streams of these guys or you play games with them to where you get that point. But that also comes back to how many guys actually sign up for scouting games. Is it the same people signing up for scouting games?
Yep.
Are guys holding guys back saying, hey, just don't sign up for any scouting games because I'm going to bid on you? There's that going around. It happens.
Right.
It's hard to say. Like, up in the AHL, you have to play 15 games in the CHL or 10 AHL games to be eligible to play in the AHL.
Right.
How many prospects sign up for your guys' scouting games? A lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because they don't know that rule.
Yep.
And then you confirm them because you're not sure who they are.
Right.
But do you have the stats? Do you have that kind of stuff in front of you to know that that guy's just a prospect? No, so you just wasted a spot where you could have had an amateur in there that you didn't know about. Instead, you took a prospect that you had no clue about, that you didn't know that was a prospect, and you scouted them instead.
Well, there's another question for you. And obviously, we went to 60 teams this year in the CHL and added a lot of owners and GMs. How much of that has been a problem in terms of a lot of new people in management not necessarily knowing all the rules and making mistakes for their team that wound up being pretty detrimental?
Look at the 67s. They just had to forfeit a whole week.
Right.
All because they were, I believe, over roster.
Yeah, they had 18.
Yeah. Had to forfeit a whole week. Their owner, I believe, was it their whole management team or just their owner that had to take the week suspension?
I think it was the owner, and then I think the GM and AGM, I think, were suspended for a couple or one or something like that. But I think that was just the owner.
I mean, right there, that hurts you. That just let Kingston and all those other teams get even closer. All because you were over roster. I mean, it's not like we don't have the tools that tells us we're over roster.
Right.
It happens. Like I've said it in previous podcasts, if you're a new owner and you're not sure a rule, I'm trying to think. If you have a question on just the interpretation of a rule,
Mm-hmm.
I can't say this season message a block. I can't say that
Right.
because I haven't noticed that much of a presence of them. I mean, it's not to take away from stuff that they do. I understand there's, with 60 teams, you're going to have an abundance of action reports. So, but I've also said, find the season owners. Ask them a question. They'll give you an answer. Most of us are on sometime a part of the day that can give you an answer that I'd say 9 times out of 10 is correct. Just because there is the surprise rule change that everybody's overlooked. But most of the time, if it has to do with waivers or trades, dragging the puck, whatever, the season owners will tell you exactly what you need to know.
Right.
Yep.
I
I
mean-
know what I was in talks with some of the blogs and even a couple of the commissioners. I think what they should do, they have all these different articles for all the rules and everything. I suggested that they go and take them and make a PDF document of the entire thing. And then that way, you post that link once and you say, here is all the information. If you have questions, refer to this PDF. If you have more questions, then come see me. It's that quick and simple. Not saying that that's part of the application, is saying that you know how to use the website, you know how to access these things. But I know for me, what I personally did is I went on to every single article. I printed it out, every single rule. That way, when I'm not playing and I have my GM or AGM or potentially no management playing, but on call, I could say, hey, guys, real quick in Discord, bing, you guys did this, or hey, there's a lag out issue, you need to do this and this and this, bing, done. I don't have to go on the internet. I don't have to access anything. It's right in my hand. I'm waiting there, just waiting for something to go wrong or waiting for something that happens to take care of. And I know that's me personally. I like seeing it in print because then I can access it on the go. I can have it right in front of me. I don't have to worry about, oh, well, this page is not displaying correctly, or I have to go to this article on a different page. It's all in one piece.
And it's not like on the website rules are that hard to find.
No, they're not.
But honestly, in my opinion, I was happy that the league finally put their foot down.
Right.
I was happy to finally see them suspend somebody and finally do stuff. Because there's so many teams that do the same exact thing where there's no punishment. They need to be more consistent.
You think they were trying to give the new management in the CHL a chance, a break, give them some time to figure it out, and then just some guys just didn't, I guess.
Yeah.
But how long do you
Yeah.
give them a chance to figure stuff out?
I got
How
you.
long do they give time to police themselves until someone else has to do the policing?
Yeah. Certainly not
I
fair.
mean-
Certainly not fair to all the management folks who've done it right from day one, who are conscientious about getting it correct, and then just letting all the other guys, float with whatever they got. I mean, it's just
Well,
not right.
that's where you see that on Discord. People are
Sure.
complaining, like, worry about your own team, but at the same time, it's like you got to police yourself first, yes, but then what about the people who are in your division that you may know that something's not correct? Well, how unless something is said, nothing's going to come up, and then people not starting rivals or rivalries or anything like that, but people complain about the people complaining about their team. Well, I mean, there's only so much you can keep in check, again, of policing yourself versus someone else policing you. And if someone's not going to necessarily enforce it every time, you're going to have people start complaining.
Well, you don't have to. Obviously, you do want to take care of your own team first, but for anybody to say, well, police your own team, like you said, what you're doing affects other teams. If you have other players on your team you're not supposed to, and I have to take into account who you may or may not start, for people who shouldn't be on the roster, then yeah, you are affecting my team. So
Yep.
it's stupid to say police your own team, because what you do affects my team as well.
Right. But I mean, once again, it goes back to my thing. How long do you give people time to police themselves before you finally hit them with a stern punishment?
Mhm.
Well, part of
Because
that.
frankly,
Go ahead.
owners, GMs, and AGMs get a copy of the rules every time, and they go in there and say, "I have read and understand the rules." But yet, week one, there they are with 18 people on their roster and over cap.
Right.
Well, I don't understand. Why did I just lose this guy back to their TC when I claimed him off waivers? It's clearly in the rules. You cannot waive somebody unless you've played them.
Right.
Yep.
But yet, it's a problem every season.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, everybody goes in and says, "I understand the rules and I accept punishment."
Sure. Well, I think hopefully that grace period in the CHL is over, and everybody will be responsible for their team, and hopefully not blaming others for getting reported. If teams are reporting you, you should get reported. You're supposed to follow rules, and you're affecting other teams. Done. Just time to adhere to the rules. If you can't adhere to rules in a league, then go play drops, man. There's no point in you doing this if you can't follow anything.
There's simple rules too.
Yeah.
There's nothing confusing about them.
Yep.
Yeah,
If
straightforward.
you claim a guy off of waivers, he's going to go to your roster. And if you put him back on waivers without playing him, he goes back to the original team's TC. Plain and simple. But there also should be punishment for people that do that.
Right.
How many people put people on waivers that are inactive? Going, hey, heads up.
Well, that's another part of it that I think maybe new owners, new GMs may not realize. If guys are inactive, you give them a chance. If they stay inactive, you get them removed. Plain and simple.
Yep.
But like I've brought up with McDonald, and it might be implemented next season. I don't know. I think there should be an explanation box when you put somebody on waivers of why they're going on waivers. If it says inactive, if they're inactive and they're not answering you, instead of keeping them on your roster and it affecting your roster until this guy supposedly messages you back, you drop them down to TC.
Hammett, what kind of rule do they? What kind of not rule? What kind of test do they give you guys before you're given management? Do they test you
There's
at all?
no test.
No?
There's no test.
There was nothing.
Nothing.
You
It's
fill out
like-
a 9-question application, aka answer my 9 questions, and then we'll make our decision.
Last season they did a interview.
Gotcha.
Was nothing I expected like an interview. I mean, it was, do you understand the rules? Yep. Are you sure you understand the rules? Do you have any questions? Nope. And then you just sit there and wait. All right, here comes the mass PM. You now have ownership. Okay.
Well, there's no way anybody can know all the. I mean, if you looked at the rules, first of all, and we've talked about this many times on our show, they're not bad, but they absolutely need to be revisited. And even Brody McDonald, the full league
my
commissioner
favorite
said
last
that.
season. I'll bring this up. I don't know who did the action report. I had a guy literally stand inside his blue line controlling the puck until our player got out of the box, and then, or no, their player, and then he literally sent the pass to that player. Technically, that's ragging the puck because he's in his defensive zone. He's not moving the puck forward.
Right.
Letting time drop off, penalty done. How is that not ragging the puck? By their definition, that's clearly ragging the puck.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me how then you can say, oh, that's a hockey play.
Well, yeah.
Where in the rules do it come down to it's a hockey play?
How much of it winds up getting, you know what it is it winds up getting interpreted then, and that's the real issue is if the rule isn't written clear enough where it has to be interpreted a certain way or can be interpreted a certain way, then that doesn't make it clear to everybody else, and it winds up just being an out for the box to say, well, I know you can read it this way, but this is how we read it, and it's like, okay, well,
it's a hockey play. It's a hockey motion.
Yeah.
Well, no, and your rule states it's a violation. Guy's laying down in his defensive zone for longer than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Clearly, your rule says you cannot do that.
I know the big one that I have issues with is the whole goalie interference.
Mm-hmm.
That one is and that's not only trying to police it in a sense, but it's also just EA itself. You'll have somebody that just runs right through the goalie, and all of a sudden, oh, it's a goal. But then you do the same thing the next night, and then you have somebody that just runs right through, and oh, nope, not a goal. Where's the consistency in that? And that one there, compared to the others, it's not really controllable by us.
Technically, that is not the definition of goal interference for LG.
Exactly, and that's
because they're letting EA patrol it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Goalie interference in LG is when a goalie comes out of his net and gets in the way of another player and the player hits him.
Correct.
That is goalie interference in LG's way. The goalie interference you're talking about, they won't ever touch because they'll have a million complaints because of EA.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Granted, last season when I was with Oshawa, dude clearly is all over our goalie, literally laying on top of him, and they score a goal and they win in overtime. The guy's literally laying on top of him. EA calls it a goal. It's a goal. It's plain and simple. You cannot expect LG to go through every single clip.
Yep.
No, you
of
can't.
Where a guy, maybe touches him with his skate.
Yeah, how the game reacts is how the game reacts, and I don't expect LG to police that. It's all the other things that lead up to it. It's when you show up for a game. It's it's all those things that you can give leeway to, but then if you want to call a team on it, are you going to get backed up with your claim? And that's where the interpretation problem comes in.
And that's a focus there too.
90% of the time you don't get backed up.
Yeah.
When you claim this stuff, you've got to have evidence.
Sure.
We're posting all these issues, but then there's no evidence. That's why we ask people to stream. Sure. That's why we tell people that when you submit inactivity, post them. Hey, my name is such and such, owner of such and such. Are you active? Are you going to respond in 72 hours? You have not signed up for any games. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. And if you don't in 72 hours, all right, smell you later. I've got my image. You screenshot it, you send it. It's that easy. But at the same time, there's certain things where we've done that. And like what Hammett's saying, do we really 100% get backed up by it? I don't know. I know me personally, I have not had any issues with the rules. I have not had any issues with inactive players or going about it the right way. I don't know if that's because of having some practice with this before or whatnot. I don't know. I've been lucky enough I haven't had those issues, even against other teams. I haven't seen any rule issues yet. We'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But
Good.
I know when 18 comes out, I know Tristo, McDonald, and them are working on a lot of rule changes, but they want to wait until the new game is out. I know John Sheldon's put out, how can we improve? They're making strides towards improving the league, but I think one of the things definitely is they need to do videos for ragging the puck, diving, goalie interference, so there isn't misinterpretation of those.
Right.
I don't, this is all voluntary stuff.
Sure.
Logs do not get paid, owners do not get paid, GMs do not get paid, AGMs do not get paid. All voluntarily. So, to a point, it's going to take some time. It's not stuff that's done overnight.
Not at all.
I think once the beta comes out and we'll see. I mean, I'm actually can't wait to see how the between the legs shot is actually going to look. Because I was talking to Priceless and I said, watch, I guarantee it's going to look like a puck shooting through somebody's foot.
Yeah, it's going to be another fun one for the goalies. Right.
I mean, you got one-handed dangles. I mean, what the hell's an extended poke check? Are poke checks not long enough now?
They're not effective enough, apparently.
You get what the hell is poke check targeting? Do I have to move my little cursor to their stick and that's an effective poke check? You don't know what this stuff's gonna turn out and look like. So but we also can say the beta's not going to be the teller either. I mean, we had NHL 17. You had the beta. I don't think it was, I would say, harder to score. I mean, goalies were able to do more, not easy shots going in. I mean, to my knowledge, I think a lot of people did like what the goalies wore in the beta. But once 17 was released, I mean,
yeah,
you still have the pass goal. Guy's trying to pass it to the backside, and it's going right through the goalie. Goalie doesn't make any animation.
Right.
You still have that. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where they take it and what it's going to look like.
Hey, how about we get back on to,
Should we go to the queue now?
Well, how about there's still a lot of moves, right, going on in your league. I know the AHL, we're still wheeling and dealing there. That hasn't stopped, and it won't stop.
I haven't even looked. Last I knew, I was the last person to make trades, so.
Yeah, and there are a couple of multiplayer deals that I saw here that go back several days, and I know there was one. There was one with. Let me see if I can remember what team it was here. It was one with Valdor. Big one back on the 22nd. Bunch of players swapped around in that one. Dubs was part of that trade on the other side. I see Newfie involved in that. Zero Choice, a bunch of names there, major, a lot of players swapping from team to team, and is that indicative? Do you see a lot of that in the CHL, like 5-6 players swapped each side?
Depends on a person's value. Defenseman, top scorer. You said the 22nd.
Yeah, I am trying to look at the trade here. It was wow, it was a big trade. Uh, to the Huskies, I think too. Yeah, Newfie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Samurai,
yeah.
Sleeve. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Bunch of names on there, but quite a few that we've seen. Um, Guys that I've seen in tryouts, guys that I've seen come up and play in the AHL. Obviously, Newfie was an AHLer for a
Right,
while.
a goalie.
Yeah, and a solid one. I'm not sure what he's doing down there. I don't know how he's not in the AHL, but that's another story.
And that's where we're talking. Cigar smoking monkey
Hmm.
should not be down in the CHL.
Right. I agree.
The dude proved himself with the Armada last season. You have guys that, you know, aren't really NHL, AHL goaltenders that I see are up there.
Right.
But right there, you have an AHL caliber goaltender, a Newfie.
Right.
So what do you give up for him?
A lot of players involved for somebody of his level, unless there's an availability issue there.
Right. So say probably Newfie went for Crosby and Spider-Man. So that takes out Newfie.
Right.
Now you have a caliber player and Dubs.
Yeah, we've seen a lot more AHLers, guys who had been around the first couple of
Right.
seasons, winding up down in the CHL. We see Lion 67 online, chatting away with us here. He's a guy who played AHL for a while and seems to be happy down in the C at this point. But yeah, I mean, there's a real mix of talent that's going on now, and yeah, I think the league knew this was going to happen. It was going to take a couple of seasons before there were more guys signing up, and there's a bigger pool of players. But now you're starting to, I kind of feel like it's going to take another year or two before AHL management and maybe even NHL management get enough of an idea of what the talent pool is, who the guys are down here that they don't see on a regular basis. And hopefully, put bids on them, get them up in a higher level than where they've been for a couple of years. Like I said, we've got CHL guys here who could easily be up in the AHL, and maybe it's just a knowledge thing for the AHL owners and the GMs that they don't know about these guys yet.
Well, and another thing comes into, I believe Dubs is a veteran. I believe is a RV.
Mm-hmm.
You have Scrumsy, who's an RV. You have Ghost the Spear down here. Trying to think. You also have a lot of draft picks that are down here.
Right.
But you also have those RVs that were randomly assigned. They can't go up.
Right.
So how much value does that hold? Where you have NHL caliber players that can't go up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you also have where they're used to NHL caliber players, where only a certain amount of teams actually have those players.
Mm-hmm.
There's teams that have guys that will be going into the draft next season, but how many of those guys actually stay up and play NHL?
Yep.
Most of them, right off the bat, are dropped straight down to AHL. Well, there's only 30 teams in the AHL. 30, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I believe so.
30 and 30.
Yep.
Well, so in 18, you'll have the Vegas Knights. So you'll have 31 teams up in the NHL, but that's only opening up, 17 spots?
Mm-hmm.
where these guys hope to go, but how many people actually stay up? You have Dragon, SES, Dragon. He's now down in the CHL.
Right.
There's another one. Trying to see. He just got traded to. How did I just see that? I know he went from the Spiff. He's now with the Sea Dogs. Trying to see if there's anybody.
Well, and
but you also had the fact of now once those NHL guys get down into the CHL, they might get called back up. So now you have guys trading for their rights in case that they do come back down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping they also decide to add an AHL team. I know that's not what's happening in real life, but I'm hoping that when they start with Vegas next season in LG, that they try and add somebody, add whatever team in AHL, and that'll open up 17 more spots for players.
I'm trying to. Have they announced who the affiliate of the London Knights are?
I believe. Oh, I don't know. I thought Vegas was sharing Chicago with St. Louis next season. Is that not the case?
I don't know. I haven't looked into that much with it. But okay, so that would be the Wolves and the Ice Hawks. If they're sharing with St. Louis and Chicago.
I think so.
But I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
They're saying that the Vegas affiliate will be the Chicago Wolves.
Right. They're sharing the Wolves with St. Louis.
So that'd be with St. Louis.
Right.
So I'm going to be kind of curious to see how that's going to work. Actually, in real life. Because you think the Blues are just going to hand over their top prospects to Vegas?
Yeah, I'm curious what the rules would be for something like that, but that would be a nightmare for us to try and do in LG.
Right.
Can you imagine the hell that would happen with something like that? Unless you split the roster up by randomly you split up the roster and you say, okay, these are you guys.
So, if I'm right, I think I'm right. On the Xbox side, is the ECHL higher than the CHL or lower than the CHL?
I don't know that. I have no idea. It's a good question.
Because if, say, we do get enough signups for 18, I would actually like it to be where the ECHL is actually higher than the CHL. Because in real life, it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And that would actually... I wouldn't say you have to open all of it up. But I think with as many people as we have, I understand people are talking, hey, TCs and all this. It's the summer season. So, I mean, everybody's not inside on their PlayStations playing. A lot more people are going on vacations.
Mm-hmm.
But once... season 6 hits, that's when you're going to be getting, everybody gets hockey fever. You got the new game coming up. I could see it where we actually could open up a couple of ECHL teams. Where I think that would help balance a lot. I know.
So you're talking about a level in between AHL and CHL.
Right.
Okay.
Where, AHL that could be like literally their TC roster. Instead of where Okay, now that's their TC roster. Now the ECHL is the TC for the CHL,
Mm-hmm.
or not, but be like their roster guys. So basically, what you have is the AHL or the NHL has their roster, and their TC is the AHL. The AHL's roster, or the AHL's TC, is this ECHL, and then you get where the roster guys for the CHL are the TCs for the ECHL. So where it's able to balance more of like the TCs out, and it gives more people the opportunity of being on rosters. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like this. It seemed like you guys, those because of the stretch of going to 60 teams, that it was really taxing on all the GMs in the CHL trying to field the team every night. I mean, that's sort of the feedback I was getting from other GMs and AGMs in the CHL, that because they, obviously
It all matters to who's actually using their TC smart.
okay.
Because by now you have enough random assignments. You see people getting this, a lot of them. If it gets to the point where they're trading all their TCs away for a roster guy, I don't feel bad for them.
Gotcha.
Because there's teams that actually have enough TCs where they shouldn't have to forfeit.
They have enough TCs to create a whole another team.
Right. So it shouldn't be an issue now. There should not be any forfeits.
Was it worse early on? Is it because a few weeks have gone by and more people have signed up that it's not so bad anymore, or are you saying it's always really a case of management even from week one?
At first, I'll say week one, you got your TCs, but then you get the people that are trading
Mm-hmm.
3 TCs for one guy.
Right.
That's where now they're having the issue, is they're trading those 3 active TCs for
Mm-hmm.
one guy.
Right.
Where you could have, it might not be beneficial to your team, where now you're crippling your team because you don't have an active TC for that Thursday game now, to where you did before,
Mm-hmm.
because you wanted that top player. And they wanted, we needed an active TC for Thursday. Oh, okay. So I'll put that guy in the trade. I'll put that guy in the trade. I'll put that guy in the trade. And I'll just get this one roster guy back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you just lost 3 TCs.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And now you're hoping that the league replenishes those 3 TCs. Or it's not.
With the right kind of, well, actually, I guess you guys can play anybody, but it doesn't matter what they come in as. It could have been veterans. It doesn't affect you guys.
Now everybody's arguing the position lock for the CHL.
Right.
I think that is fine. I think that a position lock is fine in the CHL, because your TCs can still ECU at any position.
Yep.
As long as they add that in.
Could you talk about possibly doing a position lock? If you're listed as a forward, you can only play the forward position then. If you're defense,
That is
you're only
correct.
defense. So you
That's
have
correct.
that as an option too.
No, that is the option. Even up in the AHL, as long as you are either a left wing, marked as left wing, or a center, or a right wing, you can play any forward position. Defense can only play defense. Goalie can only play goalie. So you cannot have a forward playing goalie.
Okay, so I think that's where some people are, I don't want to say misled, but they probably think in their head, I'm listed as left wing, that's it. Left wing or else. I don't think they
No.
understand that left wing, oh, well, just in like real life, hey, you know what? We're not matching you up with that person at center. We're going to shift you to the right side or something like that.
If you actually read the rules, it says you only need 9 forwards. It doesn't say what position
Correct.
they have to be.
Correct.
You just need 9 forwards. You need 6 defensemen and 2 goalies.
Correct.
It's pretty simple. There shouldn't be any confusion. The position lock in the CHL is fine with me, as long as ECUs can ECU any position. It should be. You should have enough people on your roster to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But we've now gone on about that. We probably should get to the Q because we still have the Q and W to talk about.
Okay.
Just a little cut in for those who are asking about trades. They just processed a couple trades, the last minute trades right before our 5:30 our deadline for today. So they literally just processed them. So if you want to check them out, check them in the news on LG.
Dr. Death, McRae, Shaggy all went to Kingston. Armada moving 3 guys over to the Generals. 67's just traded 3 players to the Silver Tips for skills.
Yeah, he's another one who's been around in this league. Seen him play a good deal.
Tarpit's back down in the CHL. Cleared waivers and reporting to the Giants. Looks like Speedy Dog might be going on waivers. I'll have to check AHL on that.
Yeah,
so Inception is up to the Senators now. So yeah, there's a lot of moves still. Let me get back to.
Yeah, still plenty. I mean, still plenty of movement. I mean, I think I've seen it every year where it feels like player movement. It just gets, more and more in volume every year. I mean, we used to think 40 or 50 moves a week was a lot, but that's nothing compared to what we're seeing now.
No. And now that they have where the Bogs are manually putting the trades through instead of where it automatically goes through. It's kind of testing because they don't just do one at a time like it used to be. Now they do them in bunches. So you kind of like get sweating like, hey, I need this guy to put the availability in. I need to get my lineups in. And you're trading players, so you're doing multiple deals. And you're waiting for the piece to come from one team so you can trade them to another team. And you're working all these deals. And it's not just like last season where you did the trade. Okay, now the guy's on my roster. Now I can trade him again. It's more time consuming to say. But now let's talk about the Q. So who's going to go after Valdor?
That's a really good question. I mean, we didn't talk. I think we maybe talked a little bit about them. They've got the most points in the league, 8-1 in week 4. They have 4 losses in the past 3 weeks. They had three losses in week 1. They've had 4 total in the last 3 weeks. Of their 7 total, though, 2 each to Drummondville and Blainville, who are within their division. So while they haven't lost a lot, it's interesting that they've lost 4 of them to 2 in-division teams. 6 one-goal games, the least of any team out there, which means that they are winning by plenty on the most, in most cases. And, 3 players in the top 15 of scoring, including, Wolfex, who I was talking to a little bit earlier today, 10-1-1 on the season, 22 goals, 25 assists, a plus 32. And Virus as well, starting goaltender, 21-3. 81 save percentage, 2.4 goals against. All solid numbers. While they have some standouts, obviously, that are playing on this team, they seem to be a team that is, it's not one that you can point fingers necessarily at a couple of guys and say that's the reason why they're so good. They do have a few of those, but you can't be as successful as they've been. All 3 of your lines have to be firing, both offensive and defensive pairings, and if they're not, you can't do what they've done.
Yeah, those numbers are they're insane.
Right.
I'm looking at the goals versus assists, and I'm you have certain role players that all they do is just shoot the puck. That's not the case here. You got 26 and 23, 23 and 25, 22 and 25. That is some balance across those 3 players.
Pretty sure Virus is happy that I mentioned him.
You know how many messages I get about people? When are you gonna do a shout out about Kingston? When are you gonna do a shout out about the Silver Tips? It's just.
Yeah, that's the overwhelming part about when I looked at the standings today, and I kept on scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. It's like there's 50 million teams in this friggin' league. It's hard to keep up on everything. Hopefully, you guys will get to hit most of them during the season. But that's part of the interesting part of the CHL is that there's so much talent. There's so many teams to talk about, and you can't hit them all. But Valdor is a really interesting team, and I don't know who's going to catch them. As I looked at some of the numbers for what some of the other teams were doing, I don't know if there's a clear answer about that. The Huskies look to have a good squad. We mentioned Drummondville and Blainville being able to beat Valdor a couple of times this season. So there are teams that can handle them. The problem is, what are they going to be able, what's the rest of the league going to be able to do against Valdor? And can any of them, help the guys out in the West, gain some ground on them?
Also,
yeah, agreed.
On a side note, Mid-Canadians did bring up a good point. With it being when we were talking about Vegas coming in, that's only 31 teams.
Right.
So there's going to be a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what Brody's message today was about. That they're still trying to figure that out. So
make an LG team.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things he said was there was a possibility.
Call them the LG Chirpers.
Well, Brody's message is saying there's a rumor that the Utah Grizzlies from the ECHL will move up to be the Vegas AHL team in 2018-19. So
okay.
They may go ahead and add Utah right now to make it a 31st team in the AHL. They haven't decided that yet, but I'm all for it because it balances things out as far as whose TC roster for the NHL is it going to be. It gives more playing spots, as like you guys were talking about earlier. The scheduling is the only issue, but you know what? If the AHL is going to do it eventually, then we have to figure out a schedule that works as well.
Well, if you're going to make it 32 teams, now you're talking about adding a 32 team to the AHL as well, because now you're talking not 17.
Well, there's 30 now.
Not 34. Now you're going to talk about 51.
Yeah, I mean, there's 30 AHL
There
right
are
now,
options.
and so adding Utah would make it 31. Maybe you add another fictional team and make it 32.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the answer is.
It's also a possibility.
Hey, I'm all for the LG chirpers.
There are plenty of them at every level, quite honestly.
So you got Valdor, top of their points. You got the Islanders still holding that spot in the second. You got the Remparts holding the top on theirs. But you also have the Victoria Tigers sneaking right behind the Remparts.
Mm-hmm.
They're at only 4 points behind the Remparts.
Right.
That's scary. Because Stash does have a decent team. And he's still making moves to even make it even better. So you get, you got Gatineau, you got the Huskies. I mean, you got Mutton still only 2 points behind the second spot with the Screaming Eagles.
You do have the Tigers, like you said. They have 186.
I was just going to say that.
So
yeah, that's scary. They can put the puck in the net, and that always is. I mean, and they're not giving up a lot either. You look at that, 119 against. I mean, they obviously found something, and so yeah, if I'm Quebec, I'd be concerned about them most of all.
I mean, you got Munton. They just got Scrumsy.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Screaming Eagles. If Munton gets past overtime, they have 3 overtime losses. That's only the 2. They're only, 2 wins? So, if they just get those overtime wins, they're coming right after the Eagles. I mean, you got the Huskies. Huskies have 5 overtime losses.
Right.
That's with Gatineau. Gatineau has 5 too. That's second to, obviously, the Red Deer Rebels. We're chilling with 6. So, I mean, those are 1-goal games.
Yep.
I mean, Gatineau win 1-goal games, 6-0 and 5.
Yeah.
So they're either taking it to overtime or they're winning.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
a big stat.
That's scary.
We talk the 1-goal game stat a lot because it really does. It's amazing. It doesn't seem like much of a stat, but it is one that really talks toward, how a team plays late in the game, whether they came back or had issue holding on to the lead, but whether or not they were able to, to win it in the end, even if they took it to overtime. That's a great stat right there. 1-goal games, they're either winning or taking to overtime. They're getting some points out of it no matter what. And, the same thing for the Huskies and for Gatineau, both without a loss in 1-goal games.
So, I mean, you got the standings. Hold on. Dang, group's in the way. Anna said trades are closed. Have a good week.
Mm-hmm.
It's always nice. God dang. So, right now, you have the Sanguinis and the Sea Dogs on the outside looking in. Only by 3 points. Sanguinis are only 2. That's how close. There's a huge difference between the Q, the Dub,
oh yeah,
and the O.
Well, this This leads into a good question to try and wrap up the show with. And it's something that a few guys in the YouTube message center were asking, and that is, even though it's only after week 4, and I think you're saying it might be tough to do this, but let's try anyway. If the season ends now, or if the season, if you're looking down into the future after week 9, who are you seeing making the playoffs in each of these leagues, or at least give me a couple of the front runners in each one of them?
Well, Brad, do not pick my team, because after Kyle picked my team, I went 1-7-1. So do not pick my team.
I'll stick to the OHL since I own in the OHL.
Well, why don't you start the O then, and at
Awesome.
least give a top 4 if nothing else.
Yeah. With the OHL, obviously you got the Eastern and Western. They take the top 8. So in reality, there's only 2 teams, both from the Eastern and Western, that do not make it. I think in the Eastern, I think we established that obviously the Ice Dogs and the Frontenacs are the front runners, and then you can throw in the 67s. That 4th spot, I think, is really a battle between 3 teams. I think either Pete, Steelheads, or Battalion will finish in that 4th seed. And then the Wolves and Generals being the last 2 teams that ran it out. I honestly think, unless there's a little bit of change there, Hamilton does have good potential to possibly slip up there in the 8th seed, but I think your 1 through 8, that'll be locked in. From that group, I definitely like your top 3. I think those are your front runners. It's going to come down to Ice Dogs, Frontenacs, and 67s. I honestly believe that.
I think in the West, I'm going to say it's the Greyhounds. I think the Greyhounds
There's such a sleeper.
are going to be the top runner.
There. Yeah, there's a lot of sleepers on that. That one I'm not cleared, because honestly, you could probably go down as far as 7 or 8 to honestly make a last minute push and finish as a 3 seed, and then it all depends on who you get hot and who you actually play in the playoffs. I don't have to read into it too much, because the points just show it as is. When your first team has 47 points and you go all the way down to the 5th seed still having 40 points, you've got 4 or 5 teams that are going to battle. You may look at this standings, and the next week it may just be completely flipped. But in the Western, I do like the Sting. They've got great goaltending with Mike, and they've got well-balanced defense. As long as they can keep the scoring up, I think they'll win games. Otters surprised me a lot. They've got depth in every position, so they've been making a push there. And like you said, the Greyhounds. We're talking about a Greyhounds team that in the first week or 2, you weren't really surprised by them, and all of a sudden now they've run off a couple games in a row, and now they're sitting there with 47 points. And then obviously the Knights. But I like the chances of that 1 through 4 seed. Obviously, not as much as the Eastern do you really see that powerhouse 1, 2, 3. But I honestly think those 1 through 4 seeds will have the best opportunity to move on in playoffs. But who knows? There's teams, like I said, you go all the way down 1 through 5 there at 40 points. Got some depth there.
All right, we'll quick do the W because I got to get going here. But looking at the standings, you got the Blades, Pats, and Raiders at the top of their division. In the Central Division, you have the Ice, Oil Kings, Rebels. The BC Division, you got the Rockets, Blazers, and Royals. And in the U.S., you have the Winterhawks, the Silvertips, and the Americans. In the wild cards, you got the Cougars, Broncos, Wheat Kings, and Thunderbirds. For the most part, I'm going to say every team's pretty much where they're supposed to be. I think Calgary comes and takes one of those wild card spots. I know they're nipping at our heels. They're only 5 points behind us. I think if they get a little bit more depth, they can make a push. You got the Sky High's team, the Winterhawks, Billy O, and outstanding skill on the Silver Tips. You know, the Tri-City Americans. It's close. I mean, it's not even 4 points on the bottom for guys even getting close to
getting that 16
they're,
seed.
they're right. You got 2 points to the 16th seed.
Yeah.
But even those 2 points are also almost getting you the third spot in
Well, if you look at
the
Hitmen,
division.
they have 5 overtime losses. If one of those is a win, you're talking 35 points.
Well, I mean, you're talking 6 overtime losses with the Red Deer Rebels.
Correct.
That's
Well, what I'm saying is that
what
that
is it?
16th seed, there's 3 or 4 teams
Oh,
right
yeah.
there. If one of those games, that like you said, that 1 goal game, if it flipped around, you could see a difference in that.
You got 17 games on the Red Deer Rebels are 1 goal games.
Yep.
17.
Yep.
Half of their games are 1 goal games. I mean, you got Edmonton Oil Kings. They're 9-4-5 with 1 goal games.
Mm-hmm.
That is how close that Central Division is.
Playing.
Those are all 1 goal games. Literally half of everybody's games are 1 goal games. That's 18 games in 1 goals. 18 games. That's literally half. You've only played 36.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy stat to look at. And the Oil Kings, 9-4-5 in those 1 goal games. I mean, it's crazy to see. I mean, Victoriaville Royals have won 10 1 goal games. The W is there's great hockey going on in the W. Without a doubt, of where they're just 1 goal games, where it can go either way. This is what I was talking about earlier. It's seriously close in the W. So, I mean, right now I'd say that it's hard to say. I mean, the Blades, they're 22-13-1. Kootenay Ice, 22-13-1. You got the Rockets, 25-8-3.
How about the
The
movement
Blazers
they made?
are. Oh,
that
absolutely.
first 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, skyrocket.
You got the Goat Cast, the Kootenay Blazers at 24-8-4.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally close. Any weeks can change these standings within minutes. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how week 5 goes. But I'll let you guys take over the queue. And finish this out. I actually have to take off.
Alrighty.
So
All right,
I will
Hammett.
see you boys next week.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Hammett, thanks for
All right,
joining
later,
us.
guys.
All right, talk
Yep.
to you later. There's Hammett taking off, and we'll finish this up, me and Brad. What didn't we hit yet? That's what I'm trying to
The
figure out.
Q.
The Q.
The Q.
Okay,
You want to hit the Q?
I've got the Q playoff race up on the screen, and you can talk to that. But even there, Valdor, just when you're putting up all the teams there, makes you wonder again who's catching up to them.
Yeah, I think Valdor definitely obviously is going to be a one or two seed lock, but after that, it's very similar to the WHL. You run through um, two through what is it? The ninth seed is all 50 or 40 points, and then even then down to the 16th seed, you got some crazy stuff going on there. So I think it's very similar to the WHL, where once you get past that one or two top teams, it's so balanced down below. One game can change, one overtime loss can change it and flip the seeds or whatnot.
So with that in mind, yeah, I mean, there's, I think it's kind of early to talk about it, and things change so much. We've talked about trades, we've talked about all sorts of things that have gone on in the CHL. But, what also affects the CHL is what happens in the AHL and what happens in the NHL. And while I think the NHL can be a handful to deal with as a manager, because they have by far the biggest egos up there, CHL is, the more I've been looking into it the last few days and what you guys go up against, there are a lot of factors that can make any manager want to jump off the roof of his house trying to manage one of these teams. And that goes without even talking about the troublemakers who are a pain in the ass to have on your team. So, for any team to be successful in the C, it's to me it's remarkable. I think I think whoever makes the playoffs should qualify for Coach of the Year, because it's not a fun, it is not at all a fun thing to do when you have to deal with all the issues that anyone in management in CHL has to deal with.
When it works well, and you feel good. And when it doesn't, that's you gotta not let it frustrate you. And I think we've seen some of that already. And give it time. I think you gotta just stay relaxed, and you gotta fight through it. And what happens happens. You just try to make the best of it.
I mean, we're what, 2 weeks away? We're about 2 weeks away from the trading deadline. Do you see that making any difference? I mean, I get the feeling
I don't know.
It's not going to matter.
I think at this point, you may be moving to kind of not looking for a player, but I think you're just looking for someone to pair up well with another person. I honestly don't think. Obviously there's going to be trading till the last minute. Obviously, that's just going to happen when there's 60 teams.
Right.
And there's certain, ownership members that just love the concept of moving people around and whatnot. It is what it is. But I honestly think after next week, I don't see much of movement that will be dramatic that makes your team stand out. I think it's just you're trying to find that guy that can match up with another person on your team and hopefully give you that last little push.
All right, Brad, we'll talk again next week. Hopefully we'll have more of the staff back, but thanks for checking in and flying all the way back from Vancouver.
My last question for you.
Yes.
Directed towards the NHL draft, because I like to always tie in something NHL related.
Oh, boy.
Who would have you taken number 1?
Oh, dude, you're asking the wrong guy. You're absolutely asking the wrong guy. First of all, I'm a Ranger fan, and I'm from New York, which means I have no clue who any of these guys are. Just as long as they score, I don't give a shit. That's kind of how it works out. No, I haven't been following NHL to the depth of the draft. The funny thing is, I did broadcasting for a while, and I went. I want to say it was a '91 draft in Buffalo. I had to go and cover, and it's really interesting to talk to some of these guys. I mean, I think hockey is the most interesting sport to talk to young players, because it's so different than talking to NFL draft players and Major League Baseball. I think I think most hockey players are pretty down to earth, and it's been my experience in talking to these guys over the years that they're a lot more fun to talk to than most other most other athletes. So I don't know. I mean, I think in drafting in the NHL, I think you most of the time you're going to get a quality individual, personality wise. It's whether or not their game is going to transfer well enough, and are they going to get overwhelmed starting out, even if they start out start out in the minors or have to go back to the juniors or whatever. So, I don't know. I think in the NHL you wind up seeing, I mean, you may see a top prospect or two stick around, but you see a lot more movement of players in the long run. So, it's kind of, it's not something I follow enough, and it was fun watching some of the discussions in the shout box. I mean, guys on LG talked more crap about the NHL draft than they do about their own league that they're playing with on this site. Yep. So it's I understand the fury that a lot of guys have, but I unfortunately don't follow it the way everyone else does.
Yeah, and I know me personally, wise, being from Pittsburgh, I'm not really sure where we're going with this whole Reeves ordeal. We traded with the Blues for Reeves, but I will trust as I tell my roster guys, I will trust the process. I will trust Jim Rutherford and explain what he did for Reeves, a not goon, but a enforcer. We'll see what happens there. But yeah,
that could just be that could be a message. But the thing about the NHL is, and when you're like Pittsburgh and you've got Crosby and you've got him for however much you have him left, you're probably not ever going to trade him. He's gonna die with that team, and so you don't worry about your future. You say, okay, what do I have to do to keep on winning? Yeah.
Repeat. Here we come.
Yeah. What piece do I have to get now to add to it to keep it going? And that's all they care about at this point. And when Crosby's gone, then they'll worry about future again. But not now. There is no future. It's only tomorrow. All right, Brad. Thanks, man. We'll talk again next week on this show.
All right. Sounds good, guys.
And that's it for the CHL Rewind this week. Hammett, Brad, TSibs, thanks for listening to us today, and we'll talk again next Sunday afternoon.